Hello and welcome to the No Balls Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McDonald. This is episode 4 of the NBA offseason show predicting the 2025 season. This is the Orlando Magic episode. Sheldon, like you mentioned before, the Magic are a team that you really like, and me as well. I really do like this team. Anything you got on that before we get started with reviewing
Yeah,
the
they're
24?
they're a young team and they're really exciting. Not a lot of people expected them to be such a contender right now, and I think it's going to be really interesting this season.
Exactly. And when you have that upward momentum with a young aging team, you really want to capture it, uh, the next season and keep that as the status quo of the team now. And I think they understand where they're at. They're operating like that. And we're going to see with their offseason moves that that is what they did this offseason. In 2024, they were 47 and 35, fifth in the Eastern Conference. This was a big jump. I think they won 30 games the year before. Their expected record based off of their net rating was 46 and 36, just a tad bit lower, but still pretty solid. Um, at home, 29 and 12, they were monsters at home, and then on the road, they were 18 and 23, so not as good, but they were still overall a very solid team. Pre All Star break, 30 and 25, and then post All Star break, they went on a real run, 17 and 10 post All Star break. Uh, Anything you got on that part before we finish overall the records?
No, I mean I think they just really surprised a lot of people this year. Like you said, I don't think anybody expected them to be a 5 seed at all. So really, just a strong season
Yeah,
by the Magic.
even with the first round exit, it was still very, very impressive for a lot of people. And I don't, like we said, nobody expected this out of the Magic last season.
Yep.
In clutch games, they were 12 and 14, which was seventh in the league. And then in other games, they were 21 and or 26 and 21. Versus the Eastern Conference, they were 32 and 20, and then 15 and 15 versus the West.
Okay.
Interestingly, here last episode we looked at the Heat having bad record versus the West and a good record versus the East. This is similar with the division stuff. They have an easy division. They get a lot of easier opponents. The Magic didn't have the same injury luck facing beat up teams. So I don't think there's as much to dig into that good Eastern Conference record.
Yeah.
Anything else you got on the records before we get into like the stats section?
No, I think they didn't really deal with. I mean, they had some injuries, but I think that they overcame them, and it was good that they were able to beat up on the East, and we saw that they were, pretty competent in the West as well. It's kind of average, but
Yeah. And with the identity of the team, 22nd in offensive rating at 113.4, and then defensive rating, which is where they really hung their hat and made teams respect them. They had a 111.3 defensive rating, which was second in the NBA. When you go into look at the stuff on offense, fifth in transition offense, and then 13th in transition defense. They're getting the easy points. They're doing a decent job at preventing the easy points. It's a very good job. When you watch them on defense, transition defense, it seems like they prevent easy layups all the time. Um, they're good. They're communicating well out there. They are a well coached team. We'll get into more of that on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, 23rd or 26th in pick and roll ball handler efficiency, and they ran it at the ninth highest frequency. So that ended up being 14th percentile, not good. Uh, 18th in roll man efficiency, ninth in frequency, 41st percentile, not very good. Their highest rank on the half court offense was 15th in ISO efficiency with the 10th highest frequency, 52nd percentile. They were average in isolation. And then in post up efficiency, 27th in post up efficiency with 14th highest frequency, 10th percentile in post ups. So anything on their overall offensive game here that's worth noting for you?
I'm not really going to speak on it too much. I think we're going to get more into it during the scheme part on like why those numbers what they were. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like as you can see here, this was not a very talented offensive team. It's a young team that was out there to bust their ass on defense and try their best to score well on offense. And it's why even once they got into the playoffs and when they were in the playoff race, teams kind of wanted to see them because they knew that they can stop this team on offense in the half court.
Yep.
Uh, Other stuff, they got themselves some extra possessions, seventh in offensive rebounding. Uh, the big one for them, 24th in 3-point percentage, 28th most attempts, not very good there. 17th in pull up 3-point percentage, 26th in pull up attempts, not very good there either. Not a good shooting team. Um, I think a big part of that is the guys that they are running out there are not good versus them not trying to get these looks. Like, sure, they do want to get these looks, but a lot of their guys are not good at making these shots, so they're not taking them. And it's not in their play tendencies as well. Um,
Yeah.
any other
I'm
offensive things that you have?
yeah, speaking on the shooting, I mean, one of their their second best player in my opinion, Franz Wagner, one of their main options on offense, he shot 28% from 3-point line. Like that's terrible. And he's a guy that
As
shot it
Yeah, as a
and
guy who was coming into the league as a shooter and did
exact
shoot
and
in his rookie year,
you also look at Jalen Suggs. He was their best 3-point shooter, but still, I don't know. Watching some of the games, he would miss a lot of wide open threes.
and the
I
thing
just
with Suggs too, his first two seasons in the league, he shot sub 30 from three.
yeah, yep,
This will lead into some of the offseason moves they made.
yeah,
They needed to get better at shooting.
exactly,
And
100%.
on the defensive side of the ball, this is where I was really confused looking at this at first. Like we mentioned, their defensive rating second in the league, 19th in pick and roll ball handler defense, third frequency, so teams were attacking them a lot with pick and roll ball handlers. They were okay at it, 40th percentile.
Yep.
They were 22nd in roll defense in pick and roll, 20th highest frequency, 28th percentile. So you see in the half court, they are not guarding the ball handlers that well, and they're not guarding the roll men that well.
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense, but maybe they're good in other things. 28th or 25th in ISO efficiency, and teams knew it, 8th highest frequency of attack, 17th percentile. Then you get 23rd in post up defense with 14th highest frequency, 24th percentile. And you really start to wonder how was this a good defensive team? They were the second highest rebounding team. They were securing rebounds, they were ending possessions, and then they were second in forcing turnovers in the league. Um, Interestingly enough, they did turn the ball over the most on offense as well, but they were using their length to just force a bunch of turnovers, grab a bunch of rebounds, create chaos, and a lot of their half court possessions, I think, were not being charted under some of these categories
Hmm.
because it's not a post up, it's not a pick and roll. It's They were really good at guarding the ball on swings and court reversals. They were pretty good in that area as opposed to a lot of the normal half court settings that a lot of the other teams would be good in.
Yeah, that's interesting because if you look at some of the guys they have, I mean, they have good defenders. Paolo's a big body that can hold his own against some good playmakers. Franz Wagner, albeit he's a little smaller, he's a big physical guy. You also have Jalen Suggs, who's a really good defender, and then you have Jonathan Isaac, he's a freak,
Yeah,
really good defensively.
we're gonna get
So
into
that's
him for
that's
sure.
yeah, that's very strange that they
Yeah,
didn't really have
so
the best like individual numbers because they have some good
they have
defenders.
good individual defenders. They're defensive rating was very good,
Oh, okay.
but they weren't good at guarding the common half court possessions. And you realize, dang, this was a very good coached team. They're doing all
Yeah.
the little things right. They're forcing you into these scramble situations, which they might have been the best team in defense that was not in these sections.
Hmm.
Um, that's clearly we're missing something here, but in the traditional half court settings and play types, they were not very good at defending them. But they forced turnovers, which is a guaranteed possession, and they
Yep.
got rebounds and
Yep.
possessions. They did the important things. That falls a lot on the coaching and scheme. Jamal Mosley, he's year 4 coaching, coming up as the head coach for the Orlando Magic. He worked for the Mellow Nuggets, which I think is interesting because that's a comparison Paolo
Yeah.
gets thrown on him a good bit. Um, Other interesting coaches that I could find, Aubrey McCrary, player skills coach, worked with Jamal Mosley in Cleveland in the 2010s. And then Brett Brilmer, he was another Cleveland assistant. Uh, yeah, Jamal Mosley coached under the Cavs during the LeBron era Cavs,
Yeah.
similarly to Paolo Banchero.
Yep.
How we mentioned him with Carmelo Anthony. He worked with these big wings that people think that Paulo can get to that level. So it's very important to know that. You got anything else on the coaching stuff?
They did. The Magic were doing an interesting thing last year on defense, where they would leave the worst shooter on the court open, not open, but like they would sag off of him kind of dramatically. Not what you would think in the NBA, and that helped for some help defense on drives and really, like you said, making people scramble, getting the ball passed, force turnovers. Um, like they would leave T.J. McConnell. Say they were playing the Pacers, if T.J. McConnell was at the top of the key, they would sag or in the corner, they would sag off of him and then help on drives. So I thought that was really interesting by Jamal Mosley, and
Yeah,
it just
and
speaks to what you said, being a great coach.
additionally, that goes in a lot with the personnel on their team.
Yep.
They play big. You mentioned before, Paolo is 6'9", Franz Wagner is 6'10". They have 4 really good centers, right? They have Wendell Carter, Franz Wagner, or Mo Wagner, Jonathan Isaac, and Goga Bitadze, who are all really good defensive
Yep.
centers. And then they have the positional size. They're playing some lineups with Anthony Black as their 6'8" point guard.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs is 6'4". It's a bunch of big guys out there. Even when Markel Fultz would play, he's 6'4".
Cole Anthony.
Cole
Well, Cole
Anthony's
Anthony's
their
probably the
one
smallest one.
outlier, and
Yeah. Yep. That's about it. He was the smallest one on the team, but besides that,
then even when they do that, Cole Anthony is the only guard typically playing, and if he's playing with other guys, he's playing with uh, Anthony Black. He's playing with Jalen Suggs as the 2 guard, and he's playing with this positional size around him. Um, when you think about it, you think this team should really struggle to score. They do. They have a bunch of size out there. They're struggling to score. But how did they get to good enough? The big one for here is how they're utilizing certain guys who facilitate from the wings. That's
hmm
where they run most of their offense. Franz initiating, Paolo initiating. It allows them to have this really good size while keeping their offense afloat, while keeping defensive guys out there. Anthony
yep.
Black as well. Very good facilitator. Um, Joe Ingles was a big piece of this. Good facilitator, good shooter. And we'll get into Joe Ingles and the stat evaluations here. Um, a lot of good passers, not a lot of good shooters, and a lot of good height is the MO of the Orlando
And a
Magic.
lot of athleticism.
A lot of athleticism.
Their big men's are good athletic. I mean, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter, Mo Wagner. Those are all guys that are very athletic and can shoot the ball too.
And they wouldn't be afraid to play with multiple of those guys on the court as well together. Is another
Exactly.
big thing. Um, they kept the size with having their wings be skilled and tall. Is the general MO of this team. Anything else you have on them before we get moving forward?
Nope. Think we covered it all.
All right. We move forward to the draft. I know before you had said that you really wanted to talk about De Silva, so
Oh,
I'll let you get the floor on De Silva.
yeah. Well, the thing about De Silva is he might be one of the most pro-ready players out of the draft group. I mean, he spent 4 years in college and he averaged 16 points per game. And he's big. He's 6'9", 6'10" wingspan, three-level scorer. He can shoot the ball 40% from the line his last season, or from the three-point line his last season. That is crazy for a 6'9" player. Uh, and he can handle the ball very well, especially on transitions. He shot 58% from three in summer league too. It was on 17 3-point attempts, but he made 10 of them. He can stretch the floor well. He has some off the dribble scoring, step back threes. It's nothing like insane, but he does have that in his bag, and he's really good in the post, and he has really nice footwork.
And again, he just fits in with how they've liked to build teams.
Yep, a
Really
wing that can facilitate.
tall guy can facilitate. You didn't hit on it too much, but I really liked his secondary passing in the draft. I felt like that was his big skill that you bring to the table is that he can connect a lot of stuff with his passing ability. I think his shooting's NBA ready. Defensively, he might not be big enough to guard fours or quick enough to guard threes right now, but I feel like it's not a huge deficiency, and whatever deficiency it is, they can definitely hide it with how good they play defense on this team. And I think
Yep.
he really fits in here what they need, especially with some of the losses that they had this offseason. Um, that was their only uh,
Draft pick.
yeah, this is their only draft pick for this season. But I think they did hit on it. I think De Silva is a great pick.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Uh, with their other additions in free agency, they brought in their only real signing was Kentavious Caldwell Pope. 66 million over 3 years. Big, big, big move for them. KCP was a integral piece of the Nuggets uh, championship team a year or two ago. 3-and-D. He's not going to give anything back on defense. He's going to shoot threes. They needed that. I think it's a good signing. Is the contract money a little bit rich for KCP? Maybe, but I don't think it's by that much. Um, maybe he was worth 19 million a season. They got him for 22 million a season. Good signing. Anything on KCP?
I love the KCP signing because he's everything that the Magic were terrible at last year. He shot 40% from the 3-point line. That's better than anyone on their team, any one of their guards on their team. And I've been watching KCP since he's been in Washington, and he's a really good player. And like you said, he's a good defender too. He's not going to hurt you defensively, and he can only help you offensively, especially with the shooting. That was a huge, huge pickup for them. I think it was a great, great move.
I agree. And then they also brought in Corey Joseph, career backup slash third point guard. Not a huge signing, but it's a vet minimum contract. There's no risk to it. The
Yep.
big thing for them was re-signing guys who were free agents for them or are about to be free agents for them. They re-signed Goga Batate, who had a breakout season and was an elite rim protector this year out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They got him on a great contract. I don't know why he went back here because there's so much center play here. I would have thought that somebody else would have given him this same amount of money with more playing time. 25 million over 3 seasons. The contract is descending, so it's getting cheaper over those
Okay.
3 seasons. I think this is a great signing for Goga. Anything you have on Goga?
I mean, you pretty much touched on it. Came out of nowhere, and he's a lot different, I think, than these other kind of guys they have. Is he's big, like
Mhm.
tall and bulky, and he's more of your traditional center. He can't really shoot the ball that well. He's gonna grind in the paint, and he's gonna be a defensive. He's gonna be locked down around the rim. I like it. It's a good pick or a
Yeah,
good re-sign.
and he's a true big, as in
Yeah.
like strength, and
Yep.
he's also 7 feet tall, and like Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, who are a little bit of small ball centers.
And they're
Goga
not as
step.
big as they're just not as big as Goga is.
Yeah, he's big height wise. I liked him in the draft as a pretty good passer that did not show up in the NBA. It maybe they're gonna tap into it. Uh, he's still gonna play. They started him when Wendell Carter went out, even though they did have other centers. I don't know if he's gonna be a significant playing time player for them this year, but um, we're gonna see with Goga. I think it's a good deal. In worst case scenario, it's a contract they can put in a trade. Um, Gary Harris they re-signed for 15 million over 2 seasons. Good signing. Gary Harris was one of their better shooters last year.
Yep.
Plays defense well. And anything on Gary Harris?
No, I mean you said it. Good shooter, 37%. Kind of a combo guard, and he can finish around the rim.
Yeah, and again, positional height. He's 6'5".
Yeah.
Good. He doesn't really offer the switchability that Franz does, but he's guarding point guards for them.
If you really need to,
Yeah.
you can.
They brought back Mo Wagner, brother of Franz, for 22 million over 2 seasons, 11 million a season. Anything on Mo Wagner?
He's an energy guy that's been with the Magic for a long time, and he can shoot the ball. I don't think he's gonna be playing significant minutes, but or he's not gonna be given a ton of minutes, but he'll get playing time because he goes in there and will energize and he'll energize the lineup.
Yeah, I really do like Mo Wagner on this team, mainly because I feel like the role he plays is very specified. Um, Maybe you can't play him as your primary center. You need some other size around him, which is why he really does help this team. And he does bring a floor spacing from dynamic from the 5 position, which I don't think any of their other guys really do. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that really helps next to Franz and Paulo. So I do like the Wagner resign. Um, Going forward to his brother, Franz Wagner, he signed a 224 million over 5 seasons contract extension, essentially 45.5 million dollars. Anything on Franz's contract extension?
I mean, I think it's clear what the Magic want to do, and that's keep their guys. As you see a common theme throughout this offseason. And Franz Wagner, I think he kind of also exploded onto the scene. I don't think people thought he was going to be this great, this good. I mean, he averaged 19 points per game last season, and that's when he wasn't shooting the three ball at all well. So I think he's going to have a bigger step next season, and I think he could be the future. Him and Powell are the future of this franchise.
Yeah, I certainly agree. If I had to say, it maybe is a little rich of a contract. He was paid the same as Cade Cunningham and a couple other guys. Scotty Barnes was also paid the same exact contract. It's 25% of the cap, so it's not too deflating for the team to have him, especially because they're going to have to re-sign their guys anyway. So they're probably not going to be a team that can make free agency moves. Um,
Yeah.
in this contract, interestingly enough, there's an All NBA escalator, which
Mm,
how this works. If he were to have played again this season and made the All NBA team, he would have been eligible for a bigger contract than he got. But
okay.
how it works is signing this contract, there's a deal that if he makes All NBA this season, then he gets that raise essentially. So
How
instead of
big are we
being,
talking? You know?
it's from 25% to 30%.
Oh,
So he would go
damn.
from 224 over 5 to 269 over 5. So it's a much bigger, but that is only
Wow.
if he makes All
Yeah,
NBA.
if he makes All NBA. I guess if he makes All NBA, then that contract becomes that much more worth it, though. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know what? If
Yeah.
he's as good as you think he's going to be,
Yeah.
then it's worth paying him All NBA money. But if it doesn't happen this season, then he is just on that 224, regardless of if he makes All
Yeah.
NBA
Yeah.
during that contract. So it's basically, do you think he's going to make All NBA this season? Probably not. So
I agree with
good,
that.
fine, perfectly fine to include that. And this was one of the most complicated extensions I had to look at right here was the Jonathan Isaac extension.
Yeah.
Technically, it was
Okay.
a renegotiation. Um, what ended up happening was he negotiated to get a essentially a $10 million bonus this season on his contract. So his 2024-2025 cap hit was raised $7 to $10 million to about 25 million.
Okay.
Following that, he signed a 49 or a 59 million over 4 year contract, which had that $10 million in it. So he's 7 to 5% of the cap over the 5 seasons or over the 4 seasons following this year when the extension kicks in. It's a
Okay.
very complicated contract. The last 2 years of the contract are non-guaranteed. Year two is only has $8 million guaranteed. So year one of his extension is guaranteed, and eight
Okay.
million dollars in year two is guaranteed.
But then rest of the contract
The rest of it
not
is all
guaranteed.
depending on if he plays 52 games in the season. So year one is guaranteed no matter what. If he plays 52 games in year two, then he gets $8 million. Or then if he plays 52 games in year one, then year two is fully guaranteed.
Okay.
If he plays 52 games, or if he plays 51 games, then he makes 8 million in year two, and he's still non-guaranteed for years 3 and 4. If he plays 52 games in year two, year three is guaranteed. If he plays 52 games in year three, year four is guaranteed.
All
Really
right.
complicated contract. This is almost
Yeah.
like an NFL contract with
Yeah.
all the non-guaranteed money.
Mhm.
Think of it as him taking a signing bonus for $10 million and then just adding a bunch of non-guaranteed deals years onto his deal.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for the Magic. I think that's a good number of games because I mean, all of Jonathan Isaac's career, he hasn't been able to stay on the court.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think it's great that they have that non-guaranteed money. I mean, it's team friendly. It's not really great for Jonathan Isaac unless he can stay healthy. But I mean, we have not seen like that's definitely. I mean, he's very injury prone. He's basically made of glass.
and for the Magic, if this contract works the way they hope it should, then him for the $12 million per season in years 2 through 4 is a bargain. And the risk there is if he gets hurt, then you're just completely out of the contract after the second year. If
Yep.
he's not as good as you think he is, but he's still playing, you're getting him at a fair market value. I think it's a really good deal. I think they made it complicated for me to follow, but they really hit the mark on this one.
Yeah.
Now we're moving forward to subtractions. They had Admiral Schofield, Wizards legend.
No.
He played 81 minutes for them this season. He's gone.
Yeah.
Big loss there. Kevin Harris played 5 minutes for them. He's gone. Markel Fultz, he had 42 games played this year. He didn't start for them in the playoffs, but he did play a good bit for them. a significant loss, but it's not one that's going to kill them.
Is he still a free agent?
Yes, he's still a free agent at
Yeah,
this
but I don't
moment.
think he's coming back. So
I,
yeah,
from what I understand,
yeah,
the guard situation's already really crowded. He's going to probably go elsewhere.
yeah.
Additionally, they lost Joe Ingles, which at first it doesn't sound like much, but we'll get into some stat stuff here that is a little bit more than you might think because of the name Joe Ingles.
I'm not disrespecting Joe Ingles.
All right, so this is the Joe Ingles
All right,
segment.
let's go.
These are the players. Okay, so they played a lot of non-shooters this season, and
Yes.
surprisingly, a lot of those guys were not bad in the net rating department. How they got away with playing these non-shooters? The main lineup they used was Jonathan
Okay.
Isaac, Mo Wagner, and Joe Ingles, and whatever other players they wanted to play. Typically, they were non-shooters. Paolo
Yeah.
Banchero did not play with this lineup ever, really. They
Yeah.
played Franz with this lineup. They played Anthony Black with this lineup. They played Jalen Suggs with this lineup. They played Markel Fultz with this lineup. They played a ton of guys with this lineup, not Paulo. This is how they play their non-shooters. Interestingly, because of this, Joe Ingles had a crazy net on off with certain players. So these are other players calculated with Joe Ingles on and off the court. Markel Fultz with Joe Ingles on the court, +5. With Joe Ingles off, -1. Cole Anthony with Joe Ingles on, +4. With Joe Ingles off, -0.5. Mo Wagner with Joe Ingles on, 4.8. With Joe Ingles off, -1.7. Gary Harris with Joe Ingles on, 5.5. With Joe Ingles off, 2.8. Jalen Suggs with Joe Ingles on, 7.7. With Joe Ingles off, 1.2. Wendell Carter with Joe Ingles on, 6.5. With Joe Ingles off, 1.8. Goga Batate with Joe Ingles on, 10.5. With Joe Ingles off, 0.5. Anthony Black, this is the big one. With Joe Ingles on the court, 13.7. With
Okay.
Joe Ingles off, -5.4.
Damn. 18-point swing.
An 18-point swing. That's Joe Ingles was how they played their non-shooters on the court, specifically in the lineup with Joe Ingles, Mo Wagner, and Jonathan Isaac, because it got them rim protection, and they had positional size and shooting still on the court.
Yeah. I mean that's crazy. I thought Joe Ingles was good for the Magic last year. I didn't realize he was that good.
Yeah,
But I mean you're getting KCP. Not the same. I don't think you're getting the same level of shooting, but I mean a kind of similar player. So that's why I think they addressed their need.
yeah. I'll say this: I think KCP's a better shooter,
No,
but
yeah.
he doesn't have and a better defender, but he doesn't have some of the connective playmaking ability that I
Mm-hmm.
think allowed Joe Ingles to really bring the most out of their
I see what you're
non-shooters.
saying. Yeah,
Isaac
he's been in the
again,
league forever.
yeah, and then you have Isaac and Mo Wagner giving you the size, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Mo Wagner shoots pretty well. Jonathan Isaac, his percentages are good. The attempts aren't that high, but his percentages
Yeah.
are good. So you have two centers out there. Joe Ingles can shoot, he can facilitate. He essentially played point guard in a lot of these lineups.
Mm-hmm.
How do they replace Ingles in these spots? I think it falls a lot on Franz Wagner. If Franz Wagner plays this Joe Ingles role, he can already pass well enough to do that. He's a better
Mm-hmm.
defender than Joe Ingles. He needs to be
Yep.
able to shoot for them to actually play these non-shooters on the lineup. Additionally, De Silva could also do some of these things that Joe Ingles did. So I
Yep.
think they do have the ability to replace what they were getting out of Joe Ingles.
But
Instead of the three-man lineup of Mo, Wagner, Isaac, and Joe Ingles, maybe it's Franz, Mo, and Isaac in that team. That sounds like it's going to wreck people.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the. I mean, the Magic can be a scary team if Jonathan Isaac's healthy, and I mean, they're still obviously a scary team without him. But like, if he's on the court, it opens up so much for the offense.
Yeah, and I essentially look at it as two different teams. Around
Hmm.
Paolo, you need the shooters.
Yeah.
You play the non-shooters in the lineups where you have those three guys out there who can stretch the floor from the 4 and the 5 spot,
Yeah, I
and
like
you get
that.
the playmaking from your three. It works. The only people who were not affected by the Joe Ingles net rating swing, Gary Harris, I had brought up. He was significant, so I still brought him up, but he wasn't very
Yeah.
high. Jonathan Isaac completely unaffected. Highest net rating on the team was Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
Franz Wagner completely unaffected because generally him and
They
he
weren't
was
playing
sometimes
together.
playing the role, and then sometimes he was getting the shooting. Like he was the non-shooter being helped by this lineup, and
Hmm.
then Paolo unaffected. Paolo's net rating was pretty close to neutral for the season overall, because generally when he was playing, they wanted shooters around him. He never played with this Isaac, Mo Wagner, and Joe Ingles lineup.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other things you have on that before we get to the last little bit of the podcast?
Nope. Sounds like Joe Ingles does make a difference. That's what
Believe
I
it or
got away
not.
from all that. Believe it or not.
Yeah. And I
Still
think
got some left in the tank.
I don't think they're doomed, but I
No.
think it was just a really good fit being highlighted. I think they can get Franz Wagner to play that role.
Yeah.
Uh, Extensions. Franz Wagner, we already talked about it. We think it's a perfectly fine deal to do. The number looks really high because contracts are getting more expensive as the league cap rises. Paolo Banchero is going to be extension eligible soon. My note on this is do it as soon as possible because the money's only going to get higher.
Yeah. And you definitely have to pay him more than Franz.
Yeah. Um, Jalen Suggs is currently contract eligible. If we're going off of the market, Emmanuel quickly just got $30 million, $35 million. I think Quickly's a little bit better than Jalen Suggs,
Yeah.
but it's not based off of what they did last season. It's just because Quickly has a higher track record.
No, yeah.
Suggs is definitely coming off of a better season. I don't know. Would you do a 4 year, uh, what would it be, $50 million contract extension for Jalen Suggs?
I I don't know. It's rough because he has shown that he's been improving on the 3 point side, but if he can't figure out the shooting, I don't know. It could be rough. But I mean, that's just a lot of money for him. I don't know. I think
I
Quickly's way
agree.
better than Suggs. In my opinion, I think Quickly can change a game. I don't think that Suggs can change a game.
I agree. I think he can keep the game flowing, and he's a real difference maker on the defensive end.
Just not the same offensively as Quickly.
Yeah, and he does have limitations on that side. I don't think Quickly has as many limitations on that side. What I think with the Suggs deal is you wait. You give it
Yeah.
to him after this season. It probably won't be too much more money than it would be to give him his 35 right now. If he proves himself, the max he can go is to 200 and $204 million versus
Hmm.
155. I doubt he proves
Okay.
himself to be worth 204.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say you wait. If he doesn't play well, then you sign him to a less extension. Uh, Any other? Okay. Additionally, they're rookies from last year, Anthony Black and Jet Howard. Is there any talk on them that you want to have first? Because they were rookies, but they weren't featured a ton in this team last season.
Yeah, yeah. When I was watching basketball last season, for some reason, I watched a lot of games with Anthony Black in them. I like Anthony Black a lot. He's tall. He played good in the summer league. He can shoot a little bit. He can facilitate when he needs to. Jed Howard, I don't really have much on, but I know that he's a really good prospect for them and player, and I know that he's been doing some good things down in the summer league. But yeah, I'm really high on Anthony Black. He was really good for them last year. He proved that he could play in the NBA, and it's going to be interesting to see where his development goes.
Yeah, I think Anthony Black, the big thing with him is if he wants to play with Paolo, he needs to shoot.
Yeah,
They can hide him in, like we said, the non-shooter hiding lineups with Franz and Joe Ingles and all those guys. But if he wants to play with Paolo, he needs to be a better shooter, and that is the big thing with him. Jet Howard is somebody who doesn't need to be a better shooter. He's already a great one. Going into the draft, he was a great shooter. In the G League last year, he was a great shooter. In Summer League, he was a great shooter. The rest of his game is not good. And I was not
yeah,
moved by his G League performance last year. I was not moved by his Summer League performance that he has improved in anything because he's only been a shooter.
yeah,
So maybe he breaks out and becomes a little bit better of a player for them, but he needs a better on-ball scoring game and he needs to get better on defense for there to really be a great NBA player there.
yeah. I think Anthony Black's definitely the better of the two. I think he has a good shot. He just has to have confidence in it. I
Mm-hmm.
think he only shot like 1 3 a game. He made it at a 40% clip, but like you said, if he wants to play with Paulo, he's gonna have to be able to shoot. So I think this season I looked for him to become confident in that shot.
I agree, for sure. Um, as we go there, we're probably done with extension talks now. Any other things you want to say before we get into like the prediction section of the Magic here?
Um, nope. I think we covered everything. I think they did a good job about balancing their losses. I'll
I
say
agree.
that with the free agent signings.
I agree. All right, we're gonna now get into the prediction section. Uh, I'll let you go first if you have anything big and significant here.
Um, Not really anything crazy. Nothing too. I mean, oh, you want me to give my
Yeah,
predictions?
you can go ahead and go first too.
Oh, okay. What I will see is I can see this Magic team being very, very, very good. Like ceiling top four team in the East. I think they end up being maybe 5, 6, depending on how the Sixers end up playing. But I can see them being a four seed team come playoff time. Um, offensive player for the me offensive player of the year for me is going to be Paolo Banchero. He's proved last year that he's was one of the best rookies in that class. He just really really good season. He proved that he can really just finish against any defender, especially near the rim. Defensive player of the year, I think Jonathan Isaac has a breakout year. I think he stays healthy. I'm hoping he stays healthy. I think he takes home that defensive player of the year. Um, Title for the team. And then for the X Factors, me is Franz Wagner. If he can figure out how to shoot, that team is going to be damn near unstoppable. 28% last year. 28% last year. He's got to be better than that. And if he can do that, we can see him being a 22 point per game scorer, which was higher than Paolo last year.
For sure. Yeah, I ended up having the same three guys. I had Paolo as offensive MVP because it's very clear with Paulo that even if he's not a amazing 3-point shooter, he is going to score. He's a great isolation scorer. It showed in the team that Paulo was a key source of offense for them with isolation scoring.
Yep.
Front or Jonathan Isaac, defensive MVP, clear as day for me. Sure, they have great. Wendell Carter's a great defender. Jalen Suggs made an all defensive team. Paulo's a great defender. Franz is a great defender. Goga's a great defender. They have a bunch of great defenders on this team. But when Jonathan Isaac is out there, they play like the Bill Russell Boston Celtics. For the 18 minutes a game he's out there. And I think that's really key. I don't know how much more minutes they can get out of him a game, but when he's out there, it looks amazing and unstoppable to score against. Franz, I have him X factor for similar reasons. If their offense is going to work like it did last year, I think he has to be in the Joe Ingles role and a better shooter around Paolo. If he's a
Yep.
better shooter around Paolo, I think that offense with Paolo is really good, and then the offense without Paolo is really good if Franz is the facilitator and the lead scorer that we think he can be. And realistically, if he hits both of those things, he might actually be better than Paolo.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting because they're both like very similar, but Franz has the opportunity to have a better 3-point shot. I feel like.
I agree, because he does have the track record for it. Predictions that I had, Franz Wagner has a higher playmaking volume this season. I think that's
Okay.
pretty much a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm.
My other prediction was the offense might still suck, though, just like it did this year. I mean, I sound like a geek talking about Joe Ingles, but he did legitimately raise the floor of their offense a ton. And
Yeah.
if they struggle for a little bit, then their offense might still not be very good, even if Franz and Paulo get better than they were last year. Overall, do I think they got better? Maybe with the roster that they have, I don't think so. But I feel like with the internal development of their roster, I feel like they will be better this season than they were a year ago. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I definitely agree. I thought they got better. Bringing up now that you gave me all the Joe Ingles stuff, it's kind of like. But I really liked what they did this year. I think they're a well put together team. They're young, which is really good. So we're gonna see them for a while. They're big. They're physical. I really like that about them. I'm gonna say they did get better. I think adding KCP
Sure.
was huge for them. I think he's gonna come in there and shoot the lights out. Something that we haven't really seen in Orlando. And I think that another reason why I think this team is going to be better is because they're going to be healthy, more the Jonathan Isaac and Wendell Carter duo. I think if
Yeah,
those two stay healthy, you have two NBA starting centers, caliber starting centers.
I agree for sure. And then, you know, even last season, they still were a 45 or 47 win team with those guys
Yeah,
missing a ton of time.
exactly.
Realistically, the guys on the team get better. Maybe even if they still miss those games, they might just repeat with 47 wins. And I don't see any team wanting to play these guys on a Tuesday night in November at all.
No,
Like,
no.
you don't want to play these guys. They're really good. I don't know where they're going to finish. I don't even know if they necessarily are contender ready yet. I think that
Yeah,
probably will.
it's
It'll probably take some seasoning of their top two guys. Probably will need Jalen Suggs to take a step forward. But
yep.
Orlando is
Um,
scary. You go ahead.
I was gonna ask who you thought the starting lineup was gonna be.
Okay, I think it'll be Jalen as the Namen point guard. Franz and Paolo will do a bunch of the initiating stuff anyway. Then they'll have KCP, Franz, Paolo, and then I think they'll keep Wendell
You think they'll keep
as the
Wendell?
starter. Yeah, I think they'll keep Wendell as the starter. Or they'll trade Wendell, and I think they would start Goga in that instance if they move off Wendell. Because I think the duo of Isaac and Mo Wagner off the bench playing power forward and center, I think is actually really strong.
I understand. Like that.
Um, Overall, they still have a bunch of guys who need playing time on their bench too. There's another interesting storyline for them. They got Cole Anthony,
Yeah.
Black, Gary Harris, De Silva, Wagner, and Jonathan Isaac on their bench. I
Yeah,
mean,
I,
they're legitimately 12 NBA players deep in their
yeah. I was gonna
rotation.
say like even if you don't have Wendell Carter out there or Jonathan Isaac in the starting lineup, you're running Jonathan Isaac as a backup, and then you have Cole Anthony, Black, De Silva. I mean, they have guys that they can pick. I mean, they could probably set up those guys, run them on the court, and be fine just
Yeah,
with them. I mean, they're deep. They're
like
really deep this year.
Jet Howard is very inexperienced in the NBA because he's the 13th best player on the Orlando
Yep.
Magic. And I think for a lot of teams, Jet Howard would have already gotten a lot more run. That's why I think they will still be a very good regular season team. I don't know how good they're going to be in the playoffs yet. They might not score well enough, but this is a regular season team. They're going to be good again. Um, Anything else on them before we wrap up?
No, I think we said everything.
Yeah,
I, my main point is watch out for Jonathan Isaac this year.
yeah. I
I think
mean,
he stays healthy.
if he's healthy, he won't win DPOI because he doesn't
I'm
play
praying.
enough. But in pure defensive impact, he might be the best player in the league
Yeah.
somehow. Um, well, if that'll probably be all here. We're wrapping up the Orlando Magic episode. Next episode, I'm sure will be close to home for you. It'll be the Wizards episode.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
that'll be a big
Lots
one.
of good things to talk about there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna call it an episode there, and we will see you in the next episode.